Chapter 429. Being tens of thousands of meters in the sky, once they lost their Jin Yuan, it would be the same as losing the ability to fly. Even an iron ball would be smashed into a metal pancake, not to mention a human body. Tie up your clothes. In the face of life and death, some people thought of using their clothes to make a huge umbrella to slow down the speed. The good thing was that with the mental power, they no longer needed to pour in their Jin Qi and Jin Yuan to open their storage rings. Otherwise, they would not even be able to open their storage rings. Swoosh! Countless colorful umbrellas opened up, looking like mutated dandelions. The descending speed was getting slower and slower, eventually reaching a speed that made people feel relieved. The others imitated him and did the same. Yi Chen wanted to take out his flying puppet, but if he did so, he would become the target of everyone, since he would not be able to use his Jin Yuan. One flying puppet would be enough to cause chaos, and he was not sure if he could take on the evil demon master and Master Jade River. You can borrow my clothes. Murong Qingqing was a woman after all, so her clothes were all dresses and underwear, which was not very elegant. Murong Qingqing chuckled, no need, I have this. A black shadow flashed past, and a pair of specially made gliding wings appeared on Murong Qingqing's back. They were black in color, and were 5 meters long when stretched out, looking like the wings of a demon or a bat. With the gliding wings, Murong Qingqing had regained her flying ability. Although it was a bit weak, it was better than nothing. With Murong Qingqing's help, Yi Chen hitched a ride. Countless umbrellas landed in the deep rainforest. Soon, Murong Qingqing and Yi Chen landed nearby as well, standing on a huge branch. The trees in this rainforest are indeed huge. Because of the humidity and heat, the trees in the rainforest were very easy to rot. Therefore, it was already quite impressive to have 70 to 80 meters tall trees. However, none of the trees in this rainforest were lower than 100 meters. The bushes between the trees were even taller than the towers. Those vines were like huge pythons, intertwining and climbing all over the place. Damn! What the hell is this place? There were about 80 people in the underground world. An astral-reaching realm warrior took out his weapon and chased away a head-sized mosquito. Buzz! Buzz buzz buzz, the speed of the mosquito was very fast. The sound of its wings flapping was no different from that of a bomber. In just a flash, it had arrived at the man's neck. Its mouthpart, which was as long as a chopstick, was inserted deep into the man's neck. With a strong suction, a large amount of blood was extracted. Ah! The blood-curdling screams echoed out as the astral-reaching realm warrior, whose blood had been sucked by the mosquito, shriveled up at a speed visible to the naked eye, looking like a dried corpse. Meanwhile, that head-sized mosquito instantly expanded to the size of a wash basin, its abdomen swollen dark red, filled with blood. Chi! The astral-reaching realm warrior right next to him reacted quickly. He shook his long spear and pierced through the mosquito's head. Buzz 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 buzz, at the same time, a few head-sized mosquitoes flew out of the bushes and headed toward the nearest rock spiritualist. Courting death. The rock spirit warrior's weapons were 2 huge iron hammers. When the hammers were waved, a sonic boom was heard and 3 mosquitoes were killed. However, the last mosquito was more cunning. It took advantage of the time difference and flashed to the back of the rock spirit warrior, then forcefully inserted its proboscis. Not good. My back is numb. The body of a Sea of Souls realm warrior was way too powerful. No matter how sharp the proboscis of the mosquito was, it would only be able to penetrate half an inch. However, the mosquitoes in this rainforest were not normal mosquitoes. Their proboscis carried a powerful paralyzing toxin, which instantly numbed the rock spirit warrior's back, rendering him unable to feel anything. Before the toxin had spread to his whole body, the rock spirit warrior smashed his hammer onto his back. Boom! Blood splashed everywhere as the mosquito was smashed into minced meat, sticking on the back of the rock spirit warrior's clothes. Observing the rock spirit warrior's condition, Yi Chen said with a low voice, "This place is not simple. If I have guessed it right, this mosquito should be a rank 3 demonic beast, the dragon blood mosquito, which only existed in the ancient times. Its attacking power is not that powerful, but it can pierce through the protective Jin Yuan of clasping Yuan realm warriors. Without Jin Yuan, even an astral-reaching realm warrior would die after being bitten." With the huge knowledge of the Battle King, Yi Chen knew a lot of things, including the rare dragon blood mosquitoes. Ancient demonic beasts. Hearing him, Murong Qingqing was a bit surprised. Ancient demonic beasts were even more powerful than normal demonic beasts, and they could even challenge those with higher realms. The numbness has weakened. After killing the dragon blood mosquitoes, the paralyzing toxin on the rock spirit warrior's back disappeared automatically. He let out a breath of relief as he wiped off the cold sweat on his forehead. Right then, more buzzing noises were heard. According to the noise made by the dragon blood mosquitoes, it was still dozens of miles away. The scariest part was that the mosquitoes were naturally very sensitive to fresh blood. If they did not leave this place, they would be caught sooner or later. "Let's go." No one dared to slow down as they headed in the opposite direction of the noise. The rainforest was very hot, and the trees and weeds were very dense. The people walking in the front waved their weapons from time to time, cutting down the plants that were blocking their way. Be careful. In this world, the mental power is restricted a lot. Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing walked in the middle of the group. Along the way, Yi Chen kept spreading out his soul power to check the surroundings. He realized that in the rainforest, the range of his soul power was not more than 300 meters, and the mental power was even more restricted. It could not even reach 10% of his soul power. It should be known that his soul power was a couple of times more powerful than normal astral-reaching realm warriors. According to the ratio, the mental power of extreme astral-reaching realm warriors would not be able to reach more than 10 meters. What could he do within 10 meters? Even without his Jin Yuan, Yi Chen could reach more than 100 meters within a second. 10 meters would be 1/10 of a blink of an eye. Yeah. Murong Qingqing nodded. She had already tried it, and the maximum range of her mental power was around 9 meters. After walking for a while, the surrounding shrubs disappeared and were replaced by bright flowers that ranged from a few meters to a dozen meters tall. The roots of these flowers took up 80% of their length and were thicker than his waist. They were sparkling and translucent with a hint of tender green. Swoosh! Without making any sound, one of the flowers at the back of the group quietly bloomed. Its root bent and swallowed an astral-reaching realm warrior. After a couple of blinks of an eye, that astral-reaching realm warrior had disappeared without a trace. Gradually, someone finally realized that something was wrong. The seemingly harmless flowers around them were man-eating flowers that wanted to devour people. The liquid inside the flowers was highly corrosive and could digest a person in a short period of time. Not even the bones needed to be spat out. It's the bone-eating flower. Yi Chen had been paying attention to the flowers, and only now did he find the information about them from the Battle King's knowledge. The bone-eating flower was also an ancient species. From the outside, the flower bud was only half the size of a human's body, and seemed harmless. However, once it launched an attack, the flower bud would instantly expand to a couple of meters in size, and could even swallow a small beast. In fact, no one had let their guard down. However, the bone-eating flower did not pick the most obvious places to attack. It only targeted the people who were at the edge of the group. Chop off their roots. Someone held a weapon and started to hack at the roots of the bone-eating flower. Shoo! 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 Something shocking happened. The roots of the bone-eating flower wriggled, spreading out in all directions. Soon, it disappeared into the deep rainforest. Fuck! What the hell is this place? As astral-reaching experts and Sea of Soul realm experts, when had they ever felt so stifled? Not to mention the fact that their Jin Yuan had disappeared, even their mental power had been restricted to a range of 10 meters. It was basically useless. Everyone's nerves were stretched taut, and they were all paranoid. What was even more despairing was that they did not know how to get out of this place. They were 10,000 miles away from the surface, not 10,000 meters. Including the Yin Demon Master and Master Jade River, everyone was feeling depressed and had a bad look on their faces. Yeah. Yi Chen suddenly squinted his eyes. Using his soul power, he discovered that there was an image of something moving at a high speed 200 meters away. It was not a demonic beast, nor was it a strange plant. It was a human being, and it looked no different from them. The only difference was that it was topless, wearing a leather skirt, with a beast bone necklace around its neck. There were strange patterns tattooed on its skin. Murong Qingqing saw the change in Yi Chen's expression, so she asked with a low voice, "What's wrong?" "Someone is watching us." "Someone? A human?" Yi Chen said, "It should be a human. The situation is not looking good. Beasts were not scary, plants were not scary, but humans were usually the scariest, because humans had the highest intelligence and knew how to use strategies." Shoo! Just as he finished talking, a sharp arrow shot out with a loud sonic boom. It went through an astral-reaching realm warrior's body and nailed into a huge tree, the tail of the arrow still shaking. An arrow. Is there someone? Hey, you are also humans who fell down, right? Let's talk. Can you take us out of this rainforest? Someone could not help but yell. Shoo! 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 What answered him was a huge wave of arrows. All of a sudden, he was turned into a hornet's nest, while some of the arrows were still flying towards Yi Chen. Taking out the destruction sword, Yi Chen shook his wrist, and his sword speed increased drastically. A misty sword light flashed, and those sharp arrows were all cut in half. What surprised him was that those arrows contained a trace of invisible power, which made his hand go numb, and his sword speed was greatly affected. Willpower. No, it is very different from willpower. It seems to be even easier to use than willpower. It seems to be another way of using willpower. Yi Chen was shocked. You are looking for death. A 3 Meridians warrior in the crowd bent his knees and jumped up. As a Sea of Souls realm warrior, even without his Jin Yuan, he was still very powerful. Normal astral-reaching realm warriors might not even be able to break through his defense. His body flashed a couple of times, turning into a black shadow and jumping into the depths of the jungle. Shoo! 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 More and more arrows were shot over. The 3 Meridians warrior used his soul power to sense and avoid 99% of the attacks. The remaining 2 or 3 arrows only managed to pierce through his skin, but only managed to go 1 or 2 centimeters in. Die! The 3 Meridians warrior threw out a palm attack, and the huge tree in front of him was broken in half. The top part of the tree flew out, landing on 3 or 4 underground humans. He then grabbed an injured one and went back to where he was standing. Chapter 430. Seeing that their own people had been captured, the underground people hiding in the depths of the rainforest were extremely furious. Countless arrows shot out like a torrential rain, 1/3 of which were aimed at the 3 spirit warriors. A bunch of uncivilized barbarians. Go back. The Yin Demon Master had made his move. As a member of the group, although he did not care about the lives of the others, it did not mean that he did not care right now. It should be known that the more people there were, the more power there was. Especially in the situation where they had lost their Jin Yuan, any Sea of Souls realm warriors could not be lost. He waved one of his hands, and the sky full of arrows froze before flying back. Pooh! 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 The arrows came fast, but they did not go slow either. The trees were punctured, and the plants were flattened. In the depths of the rainforest, countless underground people were hit by the arrows, nailing onto the nearby trees and ground. Master-level martial will. It was Yi Chen's first time seeing a master-level warrior using his full power. Although the martial will was not as powerful as the sword will in terms of attacking power, it was way more powerful in other aspects. For example, the attack that the Yin Demon Master had just done was something that Yi Chen could not do. Glancing at the Yin Demon Master, Yi Chen thought to himself, in terms of attacking power, both of them are way weaker than me. But, the martial will can not only increase the attacking power, but also the defense and speed. If I fight one-on-one, my chance of winning is not that high. If I fight one-on-two, I will definitely lose. I hope this will not happen. Yi Chen had not condensed the true sword spirit yet, so his cultivation was not as powerful as the Sea of Souls realm warriors. But, his sword spirit embryo contained the immortal element, which was naturally powerful. Combined with the martial will light that only a master-level warrior could have, it was definitely a master-level sword will. Its attacking power was so powerful that only master-level sword artists could compete with it. Other master-level warriors would not be able to compete with it. However, he understood that powerful attacking power did not mean powerful battling power. Moreover, the body of a master-level warrior would be even more powerful than his. Meanwhile, his body could only compete with normal Sea of Souls realm warriors, and it was still because he had been trained by the petals of the Sky Demon Flower. Bang! Seeing that the Yin Demon Ancestor had taken care of the trouble, the Three Meridians martial artist chuckled coldly. With a shake of his palm, the captive subterranean human's feet left the ground and crashed into a 5 to 6 meter thick tree at the side. With a poochie sound, the Three Meridians martial artist picked up an arrow and shot it. The arrow imbued with martial will was even more ferocious than an arrow shot from a bow. The body of the arrow pierced through the subterranean human's chest all the way to the tail of the arrow before stopping, firmly nailing him to the tree and hanging there. I'm asking you, do you understand me? The Three Meridians Spirit Master asked. Roar! The underground human captive was very strong. His muscles were covered with strange totem tattoos and looked like they were made of steel and iron. His pupils were slightly different from those of a human, and they were more like those of a wild beast. His teeth were much sharper, and his canine teeth were especially obvious. He kept struggling and opening his mouth to let out threatening roars. He was very wild and cruel. Poochie! Another arrow pierced through the abdomen of the subterranean human captive. The Three Meridians martial artist raised his voice and said, I'm asking you, do you understand me? Just as the Three Meridians martial artist was asking the question, the two arrows on the subterranean human's body were automatically pulled out. A cold and bloodthirsty light flashed through his eyes as he bent his knees and pushed off the tree with his feet, pouncing towards the Three Meridians martial artist like an eagle. Pa! Unfortunately, the difference in strength between the two was too big. The Three Meridians martial artist was a spirit-level expert after all, and had condensed a real martial spirit. He smashed the subterranean human's head into pieces with a single palm strike, causing red and white matter to splatter everywhere. Turning around, the Three Meridians martial artist looked at the Yin Demon Ancestor and Master Jade River. It seems like they have their own language and can't understand what we're saying. Moreover, they seem to have grasped a martial spirit. Not only are the arrows shot out strangely powerful, they can even pull out the arrows that have been shot from their bodies. Master Jade River shook his head and said, they don't have a martial spirit. That formless power is another way of using willpower, and it has the same effect as sword intent. It is indeed another way of using willpower. If I'm not wrong, it should be called willpower, a kind of formless mental power cultivated through cultivation. The Yin Demon Ancestor said. Willpower. Hearing this, everyone was shocked, not knowing where the Yin Demon Ancestor had gotten this information from. Soon after, their eyes burned with passion. If they could learn the cultivation method of willpower, their strength would definitely increase by a lot. The opportunity to improve further was not something that could be found anywhere. Seeing everyone's expression, the Yin demon ancestor sneered and did not say anything. Secretly, Yi Chen said to Murong Qingqing in a low voice, "Willpower is not suitable for us. We either cultivate willpower or Jin Yuan, which is impossible to coordinate. However, willpower is indeed very powerful. These people have only learned a little bit of it, and have not reached a very deep level. It's said that when willpower reaches a very high level, it can even tear down the stars in the sky and disintegrate anything." Originally, he was still analyzing what kind of power the subterranean humans were using. Hearing the Yin demon ancestor's words, he immediately found information related to willpower, which gave him a fright. This world does not belong to us. I wonder what their strength and position are here. Murong Qingqing frowned and said in a low voice. Yi Chen nodded. I think the others should have considered this question. Ho! 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 The subterranean humans quickly recovered from the Yin demon ancestor's fierce attack. They did not shoot out arrows again, but this time, it was an attack that was even more threatening than the arrows. The grass in the surroundings shook like waves, and the sound of rapid movement could be heard continuously. Judging from the height of the grass and the frequency of the shaking, it was not the subterranean humans who were attacking, but some kind of extremely fast creature that was not more than 1.5 meters tall. This made everyone even more nervous, and they all adjusted their postures, ready to fight at any time. Shoo! The first creature jumped out of the grass. It was 2 meters long and 1.2 meters tall, with the body of a dog, but 10 times more powerful than a dog. Its body, which did not have long fur, was covered with black and yellow patterns, which were generally dark in color. 4 sickle-like claws extended from its huge feet, and compared to its body, its head, which was not too big, was wrapped in a thick bone armor. A pair of fierce eyes shone with a cruel light, and its huge mouth was filled with sharp teeth, dripping with a light purple liquid. It was a huge dog from the subterranean world. Ho! The huge dog roared, throwing an astral-reaching realm warrior who was closest to it onto the ground. It opened its mouth and bit down, and the warrior did not even have the time to scream before his head was separated from his body, blood splashing everywhere. Soon after, even more giant hounds pounced out and engaged in a chaotic battle with the crowd. Due to the ferocity of their attacks, the giant hounds had the absolute upper hand. We have become the prey. Based on his intuition, Yi Chen thought that the subterranean humans were treating them like prey. First, they attacked with arrows, then released the huge dogs. This was the most effective way for the hunters on the surface world. He did not know what was waiting for them. A huge dog jumped into the air, jumping towards Murong Qingqing. Murong Qingqing's expression did not change. She reached out with her right hand, which was wearing a gold silk glove, and grabbed the huge dog's neck before twisting her body. Using the inertia, she smashed the huge dog onto the ground, making a loud sound. Blood leaked out from the corner of the huge dog's mouth as it struggled with all its might. Gotcha! With a twist of her wrist, Murong Qingqing broke the dog's neck. On the other side, there were 2 huge dogs jumping towards Yi Chen. With the destruction sword in his hand, Yi Chen took a quick step back and reached out his right arm, stabbing out a huge dog's right eye at a lightning speed. Then, he changed his footwork, his body moving with the sword. The tip of the sword sliced through the huge dog's face and landed on the other dog's throat. Shoo! Blood spilled everywhere as the 2 huge dogs fell onto the ground one after another. Without waiting for them to struggle, Yi Chen killed them one by one, cleanly. Such a tough skin defense. I am afraid it is even more powerful than most of the people here. Sea of Souls realm warriors did not need to be mentioned. Their body toughness was unparalleled, and Yi Chen was also at this level. Among the remaining astral-reaching realm warriors, only a few of them had trained body training martial arts, which allowed them to compete with the huge dogs. The rest of them could only use their skills to kill their enemies. Shoo! 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 Taking advantage of the huge dogs attracting everyone's attention, the underground humans attacked again. Countless arrows were shot out from different angles like poisonous snakes, taking lives one after another. Being attacked passively was not Yi Chen's style. He pushed his sword steps and turned into a beam of sword light, attacking toward the direction of the arrows. Fast 4 sword attacks. The destruction sword, which contained the slaughter sword intent, threw out 4 sword attacks in a row. 4 beams of sword light crisscrossed through the air, cutting down trees and separating bushes. The whole space seemed to have been torn apart, and blood spilled everywhere. Earth as sky. The Yin Demon Master did not notice Yi Chen's movement. His body flashed, blowing away the 2 huge dogs that were charging at him. He then jumped into the air, raising his right hand high up and attacking toward the depths of the rainforest. Boom! Without Jin Yuan, it did not mean that he could not perform profound sense martial arts. Just relying on his martial will alone, this palm attack from the Yin Demon Master was not something a normal person could handle. The ground in front of him cracked open and rolled up, sucking in everything within its range. It was quite a visual impact. Master Jade River did not fall behind. He drew half circles with both of his hands, twisting the air and the Yuan Qi of the underground world with his martial will, gathering into a huge spiraling force field. He used another method to perform a profound sense martial art that required one to make hand seals, Great Jade Spiral. Swish! After killing a lot of underground humans, Yi Chen was just about to choose a new battlefield when he suddenly frowned. Using his soul power, he sensed that the surroundings had been covered by a layer of invisible net. It was a mental net. Without soul power, one would not be able to sense its existence at all. An even more powerful underground human has appeared. Yi Chen did not need to guess to know that it was a master of the underground humans. The web of will was many times more brilliant than the will contained in the arrow. This meant that the opponent's will was very strong, able to affect reality alone and create an invisible but substantial net. Chapter 431. Destruction. Dealing with living things, the slaughter sword intent would be enough. Against inanimate objects, the destruction sword intent would be more suitable. The slaughter was to kill living things, while the destruction was to destroy everything, including everything. Throwing out a sword attack, the destruction chi spread out. Under this sword attack, the mental power net was like snow in the spring, melting away. The plants around it withered instantly, as if they had been through hundreds of years. A noise was heard from deep inside the rainforest. Soon, an invisible mental power spear was shot out towards Yi Chen at an unimaginable speed. It went through a huge tree on its way, which did not wither or break. However, that area seemed to have lost a huge amount of substance, turning into powder and collapsing down. However, the speed of the mental power spear did not slow down at all. Facing this, Yi Chen took a turn and held the destruction sword with both of his hands, waving it out easily. Swoosh! The invisible sword light made the rainforest lose its color, as if the colorful world had turned into a black and white one. The sword light sliced through the mental power spear, cutting it into 2. More. Sensing his opponent's movement with his soul power, Yi Chen jumped up into the air. After stepping over a couple of huge trees, he threw out a sword attack. This sword attack contained no longer the destruction sword intent, but the immortal sword intent that Yi Chen was good at. As the immortal sword intent condensed into a shapeless sword light, the color in the sky and the earth recovered instantly. The surging mental power seemed to have crushed out all the way, which was even more horrifying than the destruction sword intent. After the destruction came loneliness, and after the immortal sword intent came eternity. That underground human warrior screamed out a couple of times and crazily pushed his mind power, building out layers of mental power defense in front of him. Even then, he was still worried, so he created a thick mental power armor on his body and a mental power shield in his hand. Boom! A horrifying sound came up from the bottom of everyone's heart. The immortal sword light was like a hot knife through butter, cutting through layers of mental power defense and shattering the shield. Eventually, it landed on the mental power armor. The mental power armor kept on repairing itself, but the immortal sword light was like a parasite that would not stop until it reached its target. Its power seemed to be endless as well, crazily tearing apart the mental power armor. Eventually, the mental power armor was shattered, and the immortal sword light rushed into the opponent's soul ocean. Ah! The man let out a blood-curdling scream and fell to the ground without making a sound. His originally robust muscles had completely lost their luster, like dead rotten wood. The rest of the underground humans were stunned. The person who had died was the leader of their team. His will was powerful, and he could be ranked in the top 20 in his race. He could fight 100 people by himself. They never thought that he would die at the hands of an outsider. That outsider made them feel a trace of fear. With a swing of his sword, the outsider had completely destroyed the leader's will defense, and even his soul had been destroyed. The next moment, there was a lot of noise. The underground humans communicated urgently in a language that Yi Chen and the others could not understand. The communication did not last long. In fact, it only took a few blinks of the eye. After the communication, the underground humans retreated in unison, along with the giant dogs with sharp claws and teeth. Humph, at least you have some self-awareness. The Yin demon ancestor did not see the battle between Yi Chen and the leader of the subterranean humans, and a cold smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Master Jade River said, "I didn't expect to see another cultivation civilization in the underground world. I wonder if it's a good thing or a bad thing." The Yin demon ancestor said, "No matter if it's a good thing or a bad thing, as long as they get in my way, they all have to die." Master Jade River chuckled and glanced at Yi Chen. Although he did not see the battle between Yi Chen and the leader of the subterranean humans, his instinct told him that the retreat of the subterranean humans should have something to do with Yi Chen. This made him quite curious about Yi Chen, since an astral-reaching realm warrior was actually able to force the subterranean humans to retreat. No matter what method he used, he should not be underestimated. After a huge battle, there were only 70 people left. Among them, there were 20 people who were wounded, with varying degrees of injuries. Bastard! I did not expect that I, Old Lu, would be wounded by a dog one day. How is this still a dog? It is obviously an ancient hunting dog that can help humans hunt beasts and kill large beasts. Let's get out of here quickly. Who knows if they will come back or not. After a huge battle, the surroundings were in ruins, and the smell of blood was extremely heavy, which could easily attract the nearby beasts. The group could not take it anymore, so they left behind dozens of corpses and headed in a certain direction. No one knew how big the rainforest was. There was no sunlight or sky above, and no end in front of them. There was only endless heat and horrifying mosquitoes. The group maintained a constant speed as they opened up a small path in the rainforest. While passing by a huge branch, a poisonous snake disguised as a green leaf attacked Yi Chen viciously. Its body curled up like a green lightning, its sharp fangs aimed at Yi Chen's main artery on his neck, trying to bite him. Pap! Without even looking, Yi Chen lifted up his right hand and flicked his finger, cutting off the snake's head. Look! There is light in front of us. We are out of the rainforest. The astral-reaching realm warrior who was leading the way was overjoyed as he turned his head and yelled. Hearing him, everyone felt a lot more relaxed, and a smile appeared on their faces. Walking out of the rainforest, they were greeted by a large lake. The color of the lake was not simple green or turquoise. Instead, it was a dreamy rainbow color. Under the dim light, everyone felt as if they had arrived in a magical world. There were some birds playing on the lake, looking very peaceful. Let's row there. Someone suggested. Yeah, I think it would be great too. The three sides of the lake were still surrounded by the rainforest, and only the end in front of them could not be seen. But of course, everyone was more inclined to think that it was not the rainforest. They started to cut down the wood and build the boat. Everyone had their favorite boat, and the one Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing had made was very simple. It was just a simple rectangle, but it was a huge one, 40 meters long and 15 meters wide. The bottom layer was very thick, and the 5 layers were stacked on top of each other to make it as sturdy as possible. What wrapped around the wood were the unique vines of the rainforest. These vines had lived for countless years, and were extremely tough. Normal astral reaching realm warriors would not be able to cut it in one attack, and would only be able to leave scratches on it. After the ship was built, Yi Chen built 4 paddle stands on top of it, and there were 8 paddles, each of which was 20 meters long. The thickest part of the paddles had been cut into a flat shape, which was 3 meters wide. It looked like the paddles for giants. The lake looks calm and peaceful, but no one knows what kind of danger might occur. It would be best to prepare some small boats. Seeing some people couldn't wait to set out, Yi Chen was not impatient at all. He liked to do things without any mistakes. Even if there was danger, he would have a backup plan. Regarding this, Murong Qingqing didn't have any doubts. After the boats were built, they were placed in their storage rings. Soon, the two boarded the boat. Each of them held a paddle and started to paddle in the water, making the boat move slowly towards the front of the lake. When they passed by some strange birds, they didn't seem to panic at all. Instead, they flapped their wings and tried to keep a distance from the boat. While no one knew what was going on, a huge bird disappeared from the lake without making a single splash. Gradually, the boat moved further and further away, and the rainforest behind them could no longer be seen. There is a holy snake from the wavy saint race in the lake. Some of them are going to die. A group of people walked out of the rainforest slowly. The leader had white hair and a muscular body. His tanned body was covered in white fur, and the white bone necklace around his neck was huge. Each of them was no smaller than a child's skull. He moved his mouth, saying something that normal people couldn't understand. Someone next to him laughed evilly. The wavy saint race likes the sacred sacrifice. They will be great offerings. The leader shook his head. As more and more ancient ruins have been discovered, more and more outsiders have entered the underground. This is the 3rd time in the past 10 years. The previous time, which was a year ago, the billowing sacred clan lost a saintess. That's why we, the Greenwood Sacred Clan, have decided to hunt down all outsiders. Third Master, you are talking about Serenity, right? She is indeed a beauty. Unfortunately, that outsider pretty boy took advantage of her. I don't know what kind of evil spell he used to win Serenity's heart, and brought her out of here. The young generation of the wavy saint race really hates outsiders. Don't look down on the young generation of the outside world. Although their training is different from ours, because of their large numbers, there will always be a king among them. Yes. Let's go. The leader's eyes were gloomy as he glanced at Yi Chen from dozens of li away, then turned around and entered the rainforest. The lake was endless, looking like a dream. Hearing the sound of the waves, Yi Chen did not stop paddling. On the left side of the boat, a black light flashed through Murong Qingqing's eyes. She said lightly, "We have been targeted by something. It must be a snake." Yi Chen answered. Swoosh. Just as Yi Chen finished speaking, the boat in the front was attacked. 100-meter-long black snake jumped out of the water, opened its mouth, and swallowed an astral-reaching realm warrior. A lot of people with good eyesight could clearly see that the snake had a long beard, which looked like the legendary dragon whiskers. Swoosh. 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 There was more than one black snake with a dragon whisker. They kept jumping out of the water, taking away the people on the boat. Here it comes. Murong Qingqing put down the paddle and raised her arm, grabbing onto a snake that had just jumped out of the water. She then spun her body, sending this huge snake flying miles away, bringing up a huge splash. Dong! All of a sudden, Murong Qingqing's body shook, and the boat under her feet was blown into the air. Let me take care of it. Yi Chen jumped down, his left hand grabbing onto the edge of the boat. His body was hanging in the air, while his right hand held the destruction sword and threw out a sword attack, cutting towards an even bigger black snake. The black snake's scales were extremely hard, but Yi Chen's slaughter sword intent was aimed at creatures with flesh and blood. The snake had a sword mark that went through its whole body, dyeing the surface of the lake red. Chapter 432. Feeling the pain, the snake lost all of its power and started to dive into the lake. Meanwhile, the boat had also lost its balance and started to fall from the sky. Right then, another snake broke out of the water and waved its tail. Seeing that the huge boat was about to be cut in half, Yi Chen reacted quickly and used his left hand to slap the boat away. Boom! Yi Chen and the boat separated, and the snake's tail went through the gap between them, bringing up huge waves on the surface of the lake. Pap! 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 Taking a deep breath, Yi Chen lightly stepped on the surface of the lake. He twisted his feet, and a swirling power supported him as he started to run at a fast speed. The destruction sword in his hand sliced across the surface of the water. The swirling power under his feet increased drastically as Yi Chen jumped into the air and landed a solid sword attack on the snake's neck. Shoo! 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 In the next second, blood splashed out like a heavy rain. The snake had tried to go for wool and come home shorn. Its huge head that was like a carriage had been sliced off, and the cut was smooth and clean. Although Yi Chen looked so relaxed, it did not mean that everyone else was. Besides the 12 Sea of Souls realm warriors, the rest of them were in a bad shape. Their boats had either been flipped over by the snake or dragged into the water. No one knew if they were still alive or dead. All of a sudden, a huge area of the lake turned dark red, filled with the smell of blood. Take care of yourselves. In here, you guys can die very easily, just like rabbits that could be killed at any second. It was a Sea of Souls realm warrior who had been in the underground world for a couple of days. Without their Jin Yuan, everyone's battling power had decreased drastically. However, up until now, not a single Sea of Souls realm warrior had died, which made him think that there was nothing in the underground world that could threaten him. While he was feeling relaxed, he could not help but tease those astral-reaching realm warriors who were risking their lives. Hearing him, some of them made a face. What's so special about it? This underground world is only the tip of the iceberg for us. Who knows how big it is and how dangerous it is? However, what he said is not wrong. Up there, we can't say that we can get whatever we want, but we are not an existence that can be killed at will. I didn't expect that in the underground world, with our Jin Yuan restricted, we are so vulnerable. Even a mosquito or a python can kill us. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have joined in the fun. What's the point of saying all this? The most important thing is how to leave. Voila! Amidst the chaotic battle, a 300 meters long python suddenly emerged from the bottom of the lake. Rather than calling it a python, it was more like a giant loach. It had dorsal fins from its head to its tail, and its tail was like a dragon's tail. The dragon whiskers by its cheeks were crystal white, and they were 50 to 60 meters long. When it opened its mouth, its dense teeth were completely different from a python's. When it flicked its red tongue, 3 to 4 people were sucked in, including the almighty spiritualist. No! He reacted and slapped his opponent's head. However, this ferocious python, which had lived for countless years, had extremely strong defenses. The palm strike that contained Martial will merely caused its head to tilt slightly, and it did not suffer any damage. Instead, it became increasingly infuriated and swallowed its prey. Run! Everyone snapped out of their shock and rowed with all their might towards the other end of the lake. After swallowing 3 to 4 people, that ferocious python was still not satisfied. It chased after them with the other pythons, flipping over a boat and eating the astral reaching realm warriors on it. Master Jade River could not stand it anymore, so he stood at the back of the boat and performed another profound sense martial art that he had created himself. Great Jade Cut. Under the guidance of Feng Xingjian's martial will, several tens of streams of water flew out from the lake. These streams of water condensed into thin rope-like blades that interweaved with each other like a huge net, encompassing toward the numerous pythons and that huge ferocious python. Shoo! 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 The master-level martial will was extremely powerful, and with the support of the water stream blades, its power was released to the extreme. Besides the fierce python that looked like a loach, the rest of the pythons that were covered were all torn apart. None of them could fight against it at all. However, the fierce python was not having it easy either, as a huge net of cuts appeared on its body. Blood kept pouring out of it, dyeing a huge part of the lake red. Een Demon Cut. The Een Demon Master had also attacked. He twisted his arm, and a curved blade shot out. The edge of the blade cracked on its own, turning into a tooth-like shape. It sliced through the wound of that fierce python. Swoosh! Blood gushed out like a waterfall in a jagged pattern. The upper half of the fierce python slid down diagonally, dying a violent death in an instant. Master-level warriors are indeed powerful. They are still so powerful even without Jin Yuan. Everyone who had noticed this scene was shocked. They now had a new understanding of master-level warriors. The lake was not that huge, but without Jin Yuan, they had not reached the end of it even after a week. The lake was still so far away. On a piece of land, a lake was connected to a long river in the middle of the land. The long river divided many unique and wild buildings into two. At the riverside, a young man with golden fur was squatting there, his palm brushing the python's head. There are outsiders coming this way. There are 70 of them, and you have killed 20 of them. 2 of them are very powerful, having killed the Holy Snake Master. The teenager squinted his eyes and patted the python's head, letting it dive back into the river. He then stood up and said coldly, "With me, the Goldwind Saint Sun, here, not a single outsider will be able to leave this place alive. They will all die." As the Saint Son of the Billowing Saint tribe, his power could be ranked in the top 10. Serenity, who had been kidnapped a year ago, was his sworn sister. She was supposed to be married to a more powerful Saint Son of the Saint tribe. But, who would have thought that something like this would happen? If I am not mistaken, those 2 powerful outsiders should be master-level Sea of Souls realm warriors. Then, I will bring 2 priest elders over. Turning around, he walked toward the tallest building. Another 3 days had passed, and everyone finally saw the land. There were mountains and rivers on the land, which was no different from the outside world. The only difference was that the sky was always dark, and what was shining down from the gray clouds was not sunlight. Instead, it was a kind of light that was full of texture. Dong! The boat reached the shore, and the remaining 50 people jumped down one after another. What is this place? Why does it look a bit strange? Everything in the underground world is not right. What do you expect? After crossing the beach, a forest appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The forest seemed to have gone through countless battles, as the ground was full of holes. Trees had fallen one after another, and some places were even more horrifying than the quicksand. Everyone saw a small snake sink into the ground and never come out again. Carefully entering the forest, everyone did not even have the time to let out a breath before they heard 3 to 4 explosive sounds. 5 astral-reaching realm warriors were blown dozens of meters away like broken sacks, bleeding from every orifice. They died in an extremely sullen way. It's a trap. Yi Chen frowned. Murong Qingqing said, judging from the vibration just now, it should be a mental power explosion trap. I did not expect the people in this world to have already developed mental power to this level. We have just escaped from the tiger's mouth, and now we have run into a pack of wolves. We can only fight. Being treated as prey by the underground humans would not feel good at all. If they wanted to survive, they would have to fight. Everything else was just empty and unrealistic. On a high slope in front of them, a group of people appeared. The leader was a majestic young man with wide shoulders and a small head. His body was covered in luxurious golden fur, and there was a strange tattoo on his exposed chest, giving off a powerful aura. On both sides of him stood two white-haired old men. They also had tattoos on their faces, and their eyes were very sharp. Outsiders, you will die. The majestic young man spoke in a broken human language, which sounded a bit awkward. Old Man Sky Eagle laughed. He can actually speak our language. Although he only knows a few words, there must have been someone who came down before us. Master Jade River nodded. Since the underground world exists, it must have communicated with the outside world. It is not strange at all. The majestic young man was indeed Goldwind Saint Sun. His gaze swept through the crowd, pausing on Demon Ancestor and Master Jade River for a while. Then, it landed on Yi Chen. He seemed to feel that Yi Chen was not simple. He sneered, and disdain flashed in his eyes. Finally, his gaze shifted to Murong Qingcheng. Breathing slightly hurried, Goldwind Saint Sun said to the priest elder beside him, I want this woman. Don't kill her. Saint Sun's eyesight is not bad. This outsider woman has a good temperament, perhaps even above the saintess. The priest elder on the left grinned. The priest elder on the right said, why don't we bring her back to be our saintess? Today, I want her. As for the others, I will kill them all. Goldwind Saint Sun's eyes flickered with intense desire and killing intent. He raised his hand high and waved it down. Although the crowd did not know what he was talking about, they could tell from his eyes and actions that things would not end well. Damn, they all treat us as prey. Do they really think we are easy to bully? Slaughter them all. Kill. There was no need for any provocation. Including Yi Chen, everyone's heart was filled with killing intent, and their eyes gradually turned scarlet red. Swish 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 swish, the first to attack were Goldwind Saint Sun's group. Their weapons were spears that could be thrown. Under the support of their thoughts, the spears pierced through the air at a speed that surpassed the speed of sound, tearing apart the air and covering everyone. Go back. Anger flickered on Demon Ancestor's face. With a wave of his palm, his master-grade martial will gushed out. Ping! Suddenly, the priest elder on the left side of Goldwind Saint Sun made his move. A mental hammer smashed through Demon Ancestor's martial will, making it impossible for him to block the spear. The next moment, 3 or 4 astral-reaching experts couldn't dodge in time and were sent flying by the spears. Ding 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 ding, the bright sword light danced in the air, bouncing off at least 1/4 of the spears. Behind the sword light was Yi Chen, who was dressed in blue. Right then, he did not plan to hold back much of his power. If he continued to be killed like this, everyone would be killed, which was why this scene had happened. Chapter 433. Oh. Interesting. He was actually concealing a part of his strength. Goldwind Saint Sun distinguished his strength based on what he had seen and heard. For example, when Demon Ancestor and Master Jade River joined hands to kill Elder Sacred Snake, this scene was seen by the messenger Sacred Snake, who informed him. As for Yi Chen, he was merely equivalent to an ordinary Sea of Soul Realm expert and wasn't particularly outstanding. Now that he had erupted, his strength had doubled. It was impossible for him not to attract attention. Glancing left and right, Goldwind Saint Sun said, I'll leave the 2 who killed Elder Sacred Snake to you. There should be no problem, right? Saint Sun, rest assured. I, Sang Qing, will make sure they never return. The priest elder on the left revealed a sneer. Goldwind Saint's son was the saint's son of the Billowing Saint tribe. His talent and perception were impeccable, and his potential was huge. Therefore, although he wasn't weaker than Goldwind Saint's son in terms of strength, his status was much lower. In the tribe, the saint's son and saint daughter were only below the patriarch, and their status was extremely high. I, Bayan, will certainly kill them. The priest elder on the right closely stared at Master Jade River. Goldwind Saint's son nodded, very well, make your move. Hearing these words, the priest elder named Sang Qing pounced toward Een demon ancestor. With a thought, an incorporeal consciousness armor condensed on his body. In his left hand was a shield flickering with a silver light, while in his right was a three-pointed, double-edged spear. Although subterranean humans didn't cultivate Qin Yuan, because they cultivated body tempering techniques, their physiques were formidable. Their movements were as fast as thunder, as if an ancient mammoth was charging at the enemy at full speed. Courting death. Een demon ancestor's right hand tightened, and a 4-foot-long curved blade appeared in his hand. The curved blade had a thick back and a thin edge. With a wave of Een demon ancestor's right hand, a cold light flickered, and the air was immediately sliced open. Ding! The two exchanged blows for the first time, and they were evenly matched. Your opponent is me. Seeing that Sang Qing and the Een demon ancestor had started fighting, Bayan was unwilling to fall behind. His hands danced like a net, creating many afterimages. In the next moment, the sky-covering intent net enveloped the Jade River Spirit Master, layer after layer. The Jade River Master narrowed his eyes and activated the Great Jade Spiral, which was propelled by his martial will. He protected himself in the center and allowed the net of will to envelop him. As for the others, they had been fighting for a long time. However, in comparison, the underground humans still had the absolute advantage. In terms of long-range attacks, the underground humans' mental power was the deciding factor. The long spears they threw out could easily pierce through the bodies of astral-reaching realm warriors. In close-range battles, the underground humans' physical strength was not something astral-reaching realm warriors could compete with. They were like beasts in human form, extremely powerful. However, the people from the outside world were not completely useless. In terms of battling techniques, the underground humans could not even catch up to them. The two were not even on the same level. Murong Qingqing's opponents were 3 underground humans. These 3 people were different from the other underground humans. They weren't in a hurry to take Murong Qingqing's life. It seemed that they had some plans. Ever since Murong Qingqing condensed the embryonic form of her martial soul, she could already use her martial will to enhance all aspects of her qualities. However, when faced with the intangible will, she couldn't end the battle quickly. To be able to die by my hands is your honor. Goldwind Saint's son walked toward Yi Chen step by step, his expression extremely relaxed. As far as he was concerned, personally dealing with Yi Chen was like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. However, since he had nothing better to do, why not have some fun? Yi Chen couldn't understand his opponent's words, but it didn't mean he couldn't see his opponent's contempt. He stood in place without moving, his back straight like a sword about to be unsheathed. The sharp aura of a sword artist pervaded the surroundings. Goldwind Saint's son sneered and suddenly raised his hand. Puchi. An incorporeal will blade brushed past Yi Chen's neck, leaving behind a 100-meter-long scar on the ground. As for why it didn't hit, it wasn't because Goldwind Saint's son was lenient, but because Yi Chen tilted his head at the crucial moment, narrowly avoiding the attack. Not bad. Goldwind Saint's son curled his lips. You take a sword attack from me as well. Yi Chen didn't care if his opponent could understand him or not. The destruction sword was unsheathed instantly, and he slashed upwards, causing a bright sword light. Boom! Goldwind Saint's son had underestimated Yi Chen in the end. He didn't expect Yi Chen's sword attack to be so fast and unexpected. Without enough time to dodge, he could only arrange an indestructible will barrier in front of him, which was then quickly thickened and widened. The invisible sword light condensed from the destruction sword intent clashed with the will barrier, causing the ground to crack and crack. The surrounding trees cracked into pieces, turning into ashes. Goldwind Saint Sun himself was caught off guard and had to back out dozens of steps before he could neutralize the impact of the sword intent. Swinging his palm, he glanced at his left shoulder, where a piece of golden fur had been shaved off. Bits of hair were fluttering in the air, and his face looked terrible. "Very well, you've finally piqued my interest. I wonder how you're going to block this next attack." Goldwind Saint Sun's expression turned serious. Yi Chen wasn't as easy to take care of as he had imagined. Of course, he still hadn't considered Yi Chen as a formidable opponent. He was just a bit more serious. Metal Storm. Goldwind Saint Sun opened his mouth and shouted. The air in front of him was immediately expelled, and countless will blades shot out like a torrential storm without any pattern. Clang! 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 Yi Chen shattered the will blades one after another. Because of his fast sword speed, it seemed like he had only attacked 3 or 4 times. In fact, he had attacked at least 17 times, and each sword attack would cut apart a straight line of will blades. Bastard, die for me. The ground under his feet collapsed. Goldwind Saint Sun took a step forward, and as he did so, more will blades were formed. With a single point as the center, they started to spin crazily, creating a horizontal tornado made of will blades. The tornado had a cone-shaped tip, attacking towards Yi Chen at a high speed. Sky Thunder Cut. Holding the destruction sword with both hands, Yi Chen used his destruction sword intent to push out his best and sharpest attack, the Sky Thunder Cut. With a single sword attack, it seemed like the world was being torn apart. The tornado made of will blades was split into 2, causing Goldwind Saint Sun's attack to fail on the verge of success. Impossible. How can his sword intent be so powerful? Goldwind Saint Sun's expression finally changed. In the Billowing Saint clan, he had condensed his martial spirit a year ago. Once his martial spirit was formed, his will was equivalent to a Sea of Soul realm expert in the outside world. Moreover, after the will was transformed into will, its offensive power would increase by several folds. It was definitely not inferior to a master-level martial will. If Yi Chen could block his full power attack, wouldn't it mean that his sword intent was at the master level? To have a master-level sword intent in his 20s was simply unimaginable. At least in the history of the underground world, such a person had rarely appeared. Chapter 434. Due to the huge commotion caused by their battle, Demon Ancestor and Master Jade River both noticed this scene. Their expressions were astonished at first, then turned profound. No one knew what they were thinking. Daoist Ironwood and Old Man Sky Eagle were also astonished. Although they knew that Yi Chen wasn't an ordinary astral reaching expert, and seemed to have condensed a sword soul, they didn't expect his sword intent to reach such a level. Could it be that his talent and willpower was a peerless genius that appeared once in 10,000 years? Like the ancient Sword King, his sword Dao aptitude was blessed by the heavens, and he was favored by the heavens? Are you serious? We actually have a true dragon-grade genius among us. If this news were to spread, it would raise a huge commotion. True dragon-grade genius? Isn't this overestimating him a bit too much? Absolutely not. As an astral-reaching expert, he has a master-grade sword intent. If you say he isn't a true dragon-grade genius, I wouldn't believe it even if you beat me to death. Yeah, he's indeed worthy of being called a true dragon-grade genius. In the entire southern sector, there are no more than 5 people who can be called true dragon-grade geniuses. Among them, 2 barely qualify, and can only be considered as true dragon-grade geniuses. Despite the intense battle, the Sea of Soul realm experts were still chatting. The shock brought by Yi Chen was too great. It should be known that in a certain sector, peak geniuses were the peak geniuses, and their number was around 5. But in a sector, peak geniuses weren't enough. After all, a sector had around 5 peak geniuses, and in 8 or 9 sectors, there would be 40 or 50 of them. It was simply too much, and couldn't reflect their rarity. Therefore, peak geniuses were also divided into different levels. The first level was for ordinary peak geniuses. Needless to say, only geniuses with extremely high aptitude in all aspects could enter this list. Strength was not the only criterion. The second level was for true dragon-grade geniuses. The so-called true dragon had to have the potential to attack life and death realm. As for how to judge them, it was actually quite simple. Apart from reaching the peak level in all aspects, they also had to have a world-shaking ability. For example, Yi Chen had a master-grade sword intent at astral reaching realm, which was enough to shock the world. Even if you have a master-grade sword intent, I'll still crush you. Goldwind Saint Sun roared and spread his arms, seeming as if he was hugging an incorporeal ball. Then, he fiercely attacked Yi Chen. Gotcha. The ground was plowed with a curved semicircle mark. This mark was formed so quickly that it seemed to have been formed abruptly without any warning. At that moment, Yi Chen and the people around Yi Chen all felt as if time had stagnated, as if space had been frozen. The mental attack from Goldwind Saint Sun had slowed down their thinking. High-density thoughts. Yi Chen's heart tightened. The strength of Goldwind Saint Sun was truly not to be underestimated. If this thought attack landed, even if he didn't die, he would be crippled. But that doesn't mean it has no weaknesses. His willpower was condensed into a ball, which had the most destructive power. But, it was also because it was a ball that it could not be perfectly executed. Pushing his soul power to its limit, Yi Chen threw out a sword attack at the weakest point of the ball-shaped willpower, which was the most unstable and imperfect place. Pop! The sphere of consciousness dissipated and blasted a large pit. Goldwind Saint Sun's extraordinary strike did not pose much of a threat to Yi Chen. It was like a thunder roaring but a raindrop falling. Seeing that the first strike was effective, Yi Chen took a step forward and slashed out a second time before Goldwind Saint Sun could. Puff! Spurting out a mouthful of blood, Goldwind Saint Sun flew back with a pale face. Saint Sun! Sang-Qing and Bayan were shocked. They were very clear about Goldwind Saint Sun's strength. He was definitely not weaker than them, and could be ranked in the top 10 of the tribe. Otherwise, he wouldn't have become the #1 expert of the young generation of the Billowing Saint tribe. But now, he had been defeated by a blue-robed sword artist who was even younger than the Saint Sun. The two wanted to help Goldwind Saint Sun, but Demon Ancestor and Master Jade River were not easy to deal with. Their attacking power might be weaker than Yi Chen's, but their speed and defense were horrifying. The two could barely maintain the situation, so how could they escape? Shoot! The number of people brought by Goldwind Saint Sun surpassed Yi Chen's group in the end. Seeing that Goldwind Saint Sun was in danger, some of them took out short spears from their backs and threw them at Yi Chen. Yi Chen did not disregard the short spears. His defense could be said to be his weak point. It was worse than any Sea of Soul realm expert who had condensed a martial soul. With the amplification of his consciousness, even if these short spears could not kill him, they could still heavily injure him. It was not worth the risk. The destruction sword brandished several beams of light, chopping down all the incoming short spears. Yi Chen slightly bent his knees and suddenly shot up. In the next moment, a huge crack appeared where he was just a moment ago. The soil around the crack turned into dust, and the attacker was none other than Goldwind Saint Sun, who had been beaten to the point of vomiting blood by Yi Chen. With the support of his subordinates, Goldwind Saint Sun was able to withstand Yi Chen's attacks. He seized the opportunity and took advantage of the time when Yi Chen was exhausted from dealing with the short spears to quickly condense his consciousness attack, wanting to catch him unprepared. He truly didn't expect Yi Chen to react so quickly, easily dodging his killing blow. Puff 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 puff, dodging Goldwind Saint Sun's sneak attack, Yi Chen did not immediately charge forward and fight a life-and-death battle. Instead, he followed the inertia and floated near the group of subterranean humans that had besieged him. With a shake of his right hand, a sword light shone brilliantly and blood splattered. Psyche Cage. Seeing Yi Chen killing his subordinates as if he was chopping vegetables, Goldwind Saint Sun clenched his teeth and created a psyche barrier around Yi Chen, wanting to trap him inside. Then, he would gather his subordinates and launch several volleys. However, just as the psyche cage was formed, Yi Chen walked out with sword steps. That thin psyche barrier simply couldn't bear his casual sword strike. Too powerful. Is he still an astral reaching expert? Yi Chen had killed a lot of subterranean humans, and the more he killed, the more he saved a few astral reaching experts. These astral reaching experts, seeing Yi Chen slaughter the subterranean humans so easily and tear apart Goldwind Saint Sun's ace attack, couldn't help but be stupefied. In their eyes, even Een Demon Ancestor and Master Jade River weren't this fierce. Even Master Grade Sword Intent couldn't explain Yi Chen's power. Breaking away from the psyche cage, Yi Chen's figure flickered and suddenly appeared in Murong Qingqing's direction. You, one of the people surrounding Murong Qingqing glanced at him from the corner of his eyes and was greatly alarmed. However, before he could say a second word, his throat was slashed, and he died without any hesitation. The other two were somewhat alarmed and wanted to move closer to Goldwind Saint Sun. However, Murong Qingqing's eyes and hands were sharp. She shot out like a butterfly and slammed her palm on the chest of the person on the left. With a kacha sound, the chest of the person struck caved in. Blood and minced meat spurted out of his mouth. He immediately suffered a life-threatening injury and lost all his battle strength. The other person was overtaken by Yi Chen, who had a strange footwork, and his neck was pierced. Yi Chen was just about to deal with Goldwind Saint Sun when his soul power sensed a large group of people advancing at high speed. The leader's aura was incomparably powerful. Merely his gaze gave off a soul-tearing oppressive feeling. A peerless expert is coming. Faintly changing their expressions, Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing sucked in deep breaths and raised their speed to the limit. In a few blinks of an eye, they were already 1 li away. Goldwind Saint Sun thought of something and roared, "Don't let a single one of them escape." Yes. The group of underground humans dispersed, sealing Een Demon Ancestor and the rest. Een Demon Ancestor and Master Jade River exchanged a glance and simultaneously abandoned their opponents, fleeing the battlefield. They were very clear that the newcomer was even more powerful than the two of them combined. In terms of will, it was at least equivalent to a Taoist grade expert. And once the will transformed into intent, it would be more than 3 or 4 times stronger, enough to sweep through everyone present. Ping ping ping. How could the underground humans encircling them be the opponents of Een Demon Ancestor and Master Jade River? With a single clash, a gap was torn open in the encirclement. Old Man Sky Eagle, Taoist Black Snake, and the other Sea of Soul Realm experts also saw that something was amiss. They closely followed behind Een Demon Ancestor and Master Jade River, frantically flying away. Rock Spirit Warrior and Yuan Gold Spirit Warrior's luck wasn't too good. Just as they were about to move, they were intercepted by Goldwind Saint Sun. The result was self-evident, and they died on the spot. Just like this, the originally anxious battle instantly collapsed as the reinforcements of the Billowing Saint race approached. Not a single person wanted to fight to the death, wishing that their parents could give them a way out so that their speed could surpass the others. Kill! Kill! In less than 5 breaths' time, the number of casualties surpassed the previous battle. Less than 20 people survived, and among these 20, there were still 7 or 8 people in the encirclement. Rumble. With a huge sound, the 7 or 8 people in the encirclement were completely annihilated. The one who acted was the white-haired old man who had just arrived. His body was similarly covered in golden fur, and his two eyebrows were extremely conspicuous, like two flying dragons. Great Elder. Sang Qing and Bian bowed. The white-haired old man looked at Goldwind Saint's son. How could so many people die? Goldwind Saint's son sucked in a deep breath and said gloomily, I miscalculated. Apart from the two people reported by the sacred snake, there was another more powerful person. I couldn't stop him. Before departing, the clan had already received the news of the outsiders. The arrival of the billowing saint race's great elder was within his expectations. The white-haired old man nodded and raised his eyes to look at Yi Chen and the rest several li away. Suddenly, his brows raised and he said in a low voice, Not good. That's the conveyor gate of the sacred land. You three follow me. The rest of you return to the clan to rest. Swish. As soon as his words faded, the white-haired old man shot out like an arrow leaving a bow. Goldwind Saint's son, Sang Qing, and Bian didn't dare to be negligent and chased after the white-haired old man. The speed of the four was too fast, especially the white-haired old man. Under the amplification of his will, each step he took covered 200 to 300 meters. As he caught up to the sea of Soul Realm experts, he waved his palm, and a frightening will storm instantly crushed them to death. There's a conveyor gate on that mountain. Hurry! At this moment, speed was life. If they were not fast enough, they would be caught by the white-haired old man sooner or later. With the means of killing Sea of Soul Realm experts in an instant, even if they joined hands, they wouldn't be his opponent. Yi Chen pulled Murong Qingqing's hand. His sword intent surged to the limit, bringing the two with him. Chapter 435. Flawless. The white-haired elder's willpower was unbelievably powerful. With a thought, two huge mental power webs were formed instantly, blocking in front of Yi Chen and the others. It seemed like they were about to close up. Yi Chen frowned. The white-haired elder's will net could not be mentioned in the same breath as Goldwind Saint's son's. It looked like a huge net, but in fact, it was covered by a thin layer of will without a single gap. Apart from that, these two will nets were not just one layer, but 3 layers. If the 3 layers were stacked on top of each other, then it would be fine. However, these 3 layers were unique, intertwining with each other without any connection point. Yi Chen was very clear that it was impossible to cut open the will net in a short time. By the time he did so, the white-haired elder would have already caught up. Therefore, if he wanted to live, he had to break through the 2 will nets before they closed. If he was one step slower, then he would die. Thinking up to here, Yi Chen's forehead swelled like a diamond bead. The sword soul embryo in his soul sea blossomed with halos one after another. Surging sword intent swept out like raging waves, wrapping around Yi Chen and pushing him forward at an extreme speed. At this moment, Yi Chen's sword soul embryo was fully activated for the first time. How could Yin Demon Ancestor and Master Jade River not see how frightening the will nets were? They also did not have the confidence to tear them apart in an instant. After all, martial will was still inferior to sword will in terms of offense, and the difference was not just 1 or 2 levels. Yin Wind Escape. As a master-level expert, Yin Demon Ancestor had created 2 profound sense martial skills. One was Yin Demon Chop, and the other was Yin Wind Escape. As for using earth as sky, it was not created by him. Instead, he had cultivated the profound sense martial skills of his predecessors. Yin Wind Escape, as the name suggested, was a profound sense movement art. Yin Demon Ancestor had only created it in the past 10 years. Although he had lost his Jin Yuan and could not display the essence of this movement art, he did not have too many thoughts about it at the moment. With a flash of the grey whirlwind, the figure of the Yin Demon Ancestor disappeared. Master J-Driver's reaction was not slower than Master Yin Demon's at all. The profound movement art he had used was thousandly in one stroke. One could tell that it was extraordinary just from the name alone. In fact, this movement art was indeed extraordinary. It was only a step away from the mid-grade profound, and was at the peak of low-grade profounds. The Jade River Spirit Master's figure paused for a moment, and his speed became more and more exaggerated. There was no obstruction along the way, and even the naked eye could not catch up to him. Xiao! Yi Chen brought Murong Qingcheng and broke through ahead of time. At this moment, the mental power net was about to close up. Just when the two mental power nets were about to close up, the Yin Demon Ancestor slashed them apart and rushed out of the blockade with Master Jade River. The white-haired old man's face darkened when he saw this scene. He didn't expect that his all-out attack would still allow the four of them to escape. If they were allowed to enter the sacred land through the teleportation gate, where would the billowing saint tribe hide their face? One had to know that this had happened once a year ago. The white-haired old man stretched out his left hand and clenched it. Puff! At the same time, the two spiritual power webs merged together and formed a circle, completely trapping Old Man Sky Eagle, Taoist Black Snake, Taoist Iron Wood, and the others. Under their despairing gazes, the spiritual power web suddenly shrunk, squeezing them to death. At this point, only Yi Chen and the other three were left in the underground world. They had suffered heavy casualties, and even the Taoist masters had died. They were less than 50 miles away from the mountain peak with the teleportation gate. In the past, 50 miles would only take 2 to 3 blinks of an eye for a grandmaster. Unfortunately, in the underground world, they couldn't break the speed of sound no matter how hard they tried. There was a huge difference. Shoo 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 shoo, Goldwind Saint Child and the other two kept attacking Yi Chen and the other three. Mental power blades, spears, and hammers rained down like a torrential storm. If not for the fact that the distance between them wasn't too close, the chances of the four escaping was less than 30%. Even now, they were still in a precarious situation. 40 li. 30 li. 20 li. Seeing that the four were about to reach the peak, the white-haired old man took a deep breath and said in a low voice, "Seems like we have to get serious." Hearing this, Goldwind Saint Child and the other two were shocked. They couldn't care less about attacking Yi Chen and the rest, and frantically retreated. At the same time, they set up layer after layer of mental power barriers, as if something terrible was about to happen. Taking a deep breath, the white-haired old man suddenly roared out loud. With him as the center, a shapeless mass of consciousness began to spin unbelievably, like a rolling snowball. The scope of the consciousness storm grew larger and larger, and the spinning power grew stronger and stronger. It seemed as if a void tornado that connected the sky and the earth had risen in the void, spreading rapidly in all directions, affecting the surroundings. Not good. Yin Demon Ancestor and Master Jade River were behind Yi Chen and the other two, and were the closest to the white-haired old man. As soon as the mental power tornado formed, they felt a suction force sweeping over, reducing their speed. They realized that this mental power tornado was no different from the one they came in with. The only difference was that it was 10 times or even 100 times stronger. Bastard! Yin Demon Ancestor was furious. As far as he was concerned, apart from the high and mighty Life and Death Kings, nobody had ever been able to force him into such an awkward situation. Not even the famous master-level experts could do it. After all, there was a huge difference between being defeated and being beaten to the point where he couldn't even retaliate. If we were on the surface, none of us would need to be afraid of him. Master Jade River felt both sullen and helpless. At this moment, they could only think of one sentence: a tiger falling into a plain would be bullied by dogs, and a dragon swimming in shallow waters would be toyed with by shrimps. Even at his peak, the white-haired old man would be equal to them, perhaps even inferior. Come here. The white-haired old man had no interest in the two's sullenness. He continued to push his mental power, and the rotation speed of the mental power tornado suddenly increased, making it impossible for Yin Demon Ancestor and Master Jade River to advance. Of course, the white-haired old man's movements were also very slow. At this critical moment, a cruel light flickered in Yin Demon Ancestor's eyes. Master Jade River sensed it and said in alarm, "Yin Demon Ancestor, you dare, why wouldn't I dare? 2 dead is better than 1 alive. Master Jade River, you can die in my place." A palm imprinted on Master Jade River's chest. Yin Demon Ancestor borrowed the recoil to advance at high speed, while Master Jade River spurted out a mouthful of blood and was swept away by the mental power tornado without any suspense. He still wanted to resist, but the white-haired old man's mental power was so powerful that he couldn't resist at all. In a few moments, he was heavily injured, and his head exploded by the white-haired old man's fist. Seeing this scene, Yi Chen didn't feel anything. At this critical moment of life and death, he would have done the same. Of course, this was on the premise that the two didn't have any deep friendship. Don't even think of escaping. After killing Master Jade River, the white-haired old man looked at Yin Demon Ancestor, Yi Chen, and the other two once again. With a thought, the tornado became more and more powerful. Even the smaller mountains were swept over, shattering into pieces. Some of the rivers even flowed back, seeming to be sucked into the tornado. Soon. Feeling that the sucking power of the tornado was getting more and more powerful, Yi Chen had no choice but to push his sword spirit to its limit, activating his sword intent to increase its speed. The good thing was that the sword intent was indeed a great weapon when it came to increasing speed. The sucking power of the mental power tornado had just reached him when it was sliced open, giving Yi Chen more space to escape. 9 li. 5 li. 3 li. 1 li. When there was still 1 li to go, Yi Chen could already clearly see the patterns and the marks left behind by the passage of time. Yin Demon Ancestor was right behind him, and the distance between them was less than 150 meters. The 3 of them, 2 in front and 1 behind, were in a race against death. Humph. Several li away, with the aid of the mental power tornado, the white-haired old man could easily sense the 3 of them. He slightly slowed down the mental power tornado, and then suddenly increased it again. This slow seemed insignificant, even superfluous. However, the effect it had was incomparably huge. It was like fishing. If you pulled on the fishing line without letting go, the fish would be in a deadlock with you. However, if you loosened the fishing line and suddenly pulled it up, the fish would be instantly pulled up. Yi Chen and the other two's situation was similar to the fish. Under the white-haired old man's ingenious manipulation, their feet actually left the ground, and instead of advancing, they retreated. Demonic palm imprint, annihilation. A black light flickered in Murong Qingqing's eyes. She turned around and struck out with her palm, and the suction force was reduced by 30%. The demonic palm imprint's annihilation could annihilate all living things, but it did not include will. Unfortunately, mental power was not will. Although mental power was many times stronger than will, it was also because of this that it was no longer pure, and could be traced. Murong Qingqing's palm had directly scattered a portion of the mental power, transforming it into pure will. Naturally, the suction force was reduced by a lot. Of course, it was also because the distance was too far, and the white-haired old man's mental power was relatively weak. After all, the gap between the two was too big. Feeling his body lighten, Yi Chen grabbed the opportunity and arrived beside the passage gate with a few flashes. Then, he brought Murong Qingqing into the whirlpool. "You're dead for sure. When we reach the outside world, I'll make you die without a burial place." Yin Demon Ancestor gnashed his teeth while throwing out 2 high-grade artifacts and roared, "Explode!" Rumble. The high-grade artifacts did not explode, but the Yin Demon Ancestor's will that was stored inside exploded. This bit of will explosion did not pose much of a threat, but it was precisely because of this bit of will explosion that the deadlock situation became unbalanced. Yin Demon Ancestor's calculation was correct. 1 high-grade artifact was not enough, and only 2 high-grade artifacts could barely break the balance. The reason why the will could explode was because high-grade artifacts had the ability to store a bit of will. Otherwise, if one's own will exploded, their martial spirit would completely collapse, and they would be deader than dead. Swish. Not caring about the heartache of losing two high-grade artifacts, demon ancestor's figure flickered, disappearing into the passage gate. The mental power tornado dispersed, and the white-haired old man flew over with a pale face. He reached out his hand to grab the somewhat damaged high-grade artifact, and said with an ashen face, "I don't believe that every outsider can pass the Holy Land's trial. If you can't, all of you will become new stone statues." Chapter 436. The Holy Land was not the Holy Land of the Billowing Saint clan, but the Holy Land of the first layer of the underground world. It was said that it was closely related to the Holy Land of the second layer. A year ago, Serenity was supposed to be married to a powerful saint son of a saint clan in the second layer of the underground world. At that time, she and that outsider young man had just left the Holy Land, causing the Billowing Saint clan to lose a lot of face. The Holy Land was very dangerous. If the underground humans entered, they would most likely die. No, not even 1 out of 100 would survive. However, what made the underground humans puzzled was that the chances of outsiders surviving in the Holy Land were much higher. At least, there were many examples of that. The greater the danger, the greater the benefits. The Holy Land had existed since the ancient times, and contained many secrets and treasures. Every 100 years, the Billowing Saint clan would organize a team to enter the Holy Land, and so would some of the surrounding saint clans. This time, it had not even been 100 years. Being alone, the white-haired elder did not dare to enter. Head elder, did they enter? Goldwind Saint's son and the other two flew over. The white-haired elder said expressionlessly, "This matter is over. Let's go back." No matter how unwilling he was, this mission had failed. Count them lucky. But, I wonder how long this luck will last. Who knows, the next time we enter the Holy Land, we might see their statues. Goldwind Saint's son said coldly. Woo woo woo. Woo 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 woo. The black gale blew everywhere like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. Everywhere it passed, it would let out a woo-woo sound, and the towering mountain peaks would be shaved off. The moment Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing appeared, they saw a gust of black wind blowing over. The two subconsciously strengthened their defense. What surprised them was that the Zhen Yuan that had been compressed in the deepest part of their dantian broke free and formed a layer of protective Zhen Yuan outside their bodies, firmly protecting them. The Zhen Yuan here is not restricted. Murong Qingqing said after resisting the black wind with some difficulty. Yi Chen said, "My spirit power is still being suppressed." No wonder they did not catch up. When the spirit power was suppressed, the soul would also be suppressed. Once the soul was weakened, the will would naturally be affected. As for how much the will was suppressed in the underground world, Yi Chen did not know. Pitter-patter. As the black wind collided with Yi Chen's protective true essence, it issued a continuous series of explosive sounds. A faint feeling of dizziness suddenly appeared. Yi Chen finally noticed the black wind. After carefully identifying it, he said, "This is the soul-scattering astral wind. It is an astral wind formed from the combination of metal origin energy and dark origin energy. Not only that, but there is also a faint trace of will contained within, making this astral wind comparable to astral energy." The difference between the astral wind and the astral qi was that the former was mixed with the air, which had more impurities. Therefore, its power was not as powerful as the pure astral qi. However, with the enhancement of the weird will, the astral wind's power was not weaker than the astral qi, which was powerful enough to threaten 99% of the astral reaching realm warriors. I wonder if the demon ancestor has entered. Murong Qingqing frowned slightly. He should be coming in. But there is no need to worry. Yi Chen knew what she was worried about. Since this place could not suppress Zhen Yuan, then the demon ancestor would be a true master-level expert after entering. Even if the two of them joined hands, they would not be able to defeat him with a single hand. However, they did not have any enmity with the Yin demon ancestor, nor did they have any conflicts of interest. Even if they met, it would not be a big deal. As for the future, they could talk about it in the future. The Yin demon ancestor had indeed entered. However, he was not in the same place as Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing. The moment he came out, a strange gale faintly emitting three-colored lights blew over. Its might was incomparable, almost the same as an all-out attack of an ordinary Sea of Soul realm expert. However, the next moment, the Yin demon ancestor let out a sigh of relief. He discovered that he could finally use Jin Yuan. With Jin Yuan, what could these three-colored gale do? Green, yellow, black. It's actually the soul-leaving astral wind. No, it contains a weird will. Its might is not inferior to the astral qi formed by the fusion of three kinds of yuan qi. The Yin demon ancestor was somewhat astonished. He had never heard of a will contained in the wind. Was it man-made or natural? Walking on the desolate and hard ground, the Yin demon ancestor was fearless. As long as he had Jin Yuan, not to mention his battle power increasing by several folds, his life-saving means had also increased. The only thing that made him feel a bit pained was that he had lost 2 upper-grade artifacts in order to get rid of the white-haired old man. It should be known that even if he was a master-level expert, he did not have many upper-grade artifacts. At this moment, he only had 1 upper-grade artifact left. The Yin demon ancestor's brows twitched. As he retreated, he slashed out with his blade. Puchi. The huge centipede that had just popped out had its head chopped off, black juices splattering everywhere. 9th grade ancient demonic beast, Black Mountain Centipede. The Yin demon ancestor recognized the centipede with a single glance. A centipede died, but it did not stop moving. Although the centipede had its head chopped off, its lower body still broke out of the ground and swept toward the Yin demon ancestor. Courting death. The Yin demon ancestor sneered. Being chased by the white-haired old man had always annoyed him, and he had been wondering where to vent it. With a wave of his blade, dozens of sawtooth blade chi crisscrossed. The centipede was instantly dismembered, its flesh scattering in all directions. While the Yin demon ancestor had dealt with the Black Mountain Centipede, Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing were besieged by a group of 7th grade ancient demonic beasts, snake-scaled wolves. The snake-scaled wolf was a mutated demonic beast. Its body was like a wolf, but it was several times bigger than an ordinary wolf. It was more than 2 meters tall, and it had no fur on its body. Instead, it had scales that flickered with dark blue radiance. These scales were very small compared to its huge body, only the size of a thumb. However, it was precisely because of this that the densely packed scales of the snake-scaled wolf had a very high defense, comparable to some 8th grade demonic beasts. From time to time, the snake-scaled wolf would spit out a ball of black light, bombarding Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing. Green Lotus Chi Transformation. Like a porcupine, countless sword chi shot out from Yi Chen's body. After a round of attacks, a large number of snake-scaled wolves died. With Yi Chen's strength, not to mention a large group of 7th grade demonic beasts, even a large group of 8th grade demonic beasts would not be able to do anything to him. Just as the two of them were about to eliminate all the snake-scaled wolves, the remaining one seemed to have sensed something and ran desperately in a certain direction. Yi Chen did not think that the snake-scaled wolves were afraid. He had killed so many of them before, but they were not afraid at all. Following the gaze of a snake-scaled wolf as it turned around, Yi Chen turned his head to look. On the horizon, a layer of black chi was moving towards them. The speed of the black chi was extremely fast, allowing Yi Chen to clearly see its appearance. Rather than calling it black chi, it would be more accurate to call it black mist. This black mist that covered the entire mountain was like a ghostly mist, from which ghostly wails and wolf howls could be heard. Faintly, Yi Chen could see many blurry human faces and human bodies, as well as the vague silhouettes of some demonic beasts. Wherever the black mist went, the demonic beasts that were hidden in the depths would be swept out. Their bodies would rapidly decay, and a mass of light would merge into the black mist. Soul Devour. Yi Chen's complexion changed. Not caring about hiding anything, he took out his flying puppet from his storage ring. Yi Chen had 2 flying puppets, a leopard puppet and a rock puppet. The leopard puppet was equipped with mid-grade spirit stones, while the rock puppet was equipped with upper-grade spirit stones. This way, he could change them at any time at a critical moment. At this moment, Yi Chen took out the rock puppet. "Get on." Leaping onto the back of the rock puppet, Yi Chen said. Murong Qingcheng was somewhat astonished and quickly jumped on. Swish. With the upper-grade spirit stones as the driving force, the rock puppet's speed was as fast as an aurora. In 2 or 3 blinks of an eye, its speed had increased to 5 times the speed of sound, then 7 times the speed of sound, and then 10 times the speed of sound. It was as fast as lightning, leaving all the snake-scaled wolves behind. "This is an upper-grade flying puppet?" Murong Qingcheng asked. Yi Chen nodded. "I found it in the ruins of a puppet sect branch. Its maximum speed is 10 times the speed of sound, comparable to ordinary Sea of Soul realm experts. However, it consumes upper-grade spirit stones. The black mist speed was at least 6 or 7 times the speed of sound. The snake-scaled wolves were overtaken without any leeway to resist. Their bodies decayed one after another, and their souls floated out. The scene was extremely spectacular and horrifying, as if they had arrived at a hellish world. Half an hour later, the 2 of them rode on the giant rock puppet and traveled 25,000 miles away, leaving the soul-devouring black fog far behind. Putting away the rock puppet, the 2 landed on the ground. As far as the eye could see, it was a wilderness overgrown with weeds. Strangely, they could see a stone statue every few meters. These stone statues were either standing, sitting, lying on the ground, or buried in the soil. They didn't know if it was an illusion, but the expressions of the stone statues were vivid and lifelike, as if they had a mind of their own. Their originally expressionless faces all had a hint of a strange smile. They don't look any different from the statues in the Stoneman Array. Yi Chen recalled that the Stoneman Array had fallen into the underground world together with the Undying Altar. There might be some unknown relationship between the 2. Gotcha. When he passed by a half-buried statue of a stone man, a few cracks suddenly appeared in the soil beside the statue. Murong Qingcheng cautiously said, "There's something inside the statue." As soon as she said those words, the statue broke out of the soil. A cold smile appeared on its stone face as it twisted its arm and punched toward the 2. Heaven's Rebuke. Murong Qingcheng's palm met the attack, and the statue was knocked back dozens of meters by the repulsive force. Gotcha. 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 The surrounding stone golem statues all came to life, and the smiles on their faces were either eerie or demented. If it wasn't a cruel smile, it wouldn't look like a normal smile. It gave off a chilling feeling, and it was incredibly evil. Sky Thunder Cut. Yi Chen didn't dare to be careless. He threw out his most powerful sword attack. The sword light was like snow as it cut down 7 or 8 statues in a straight line. The statues were cut open, and black smoke rose from the broken parts. Then, the upper parts reconnected without a trace of damage. Undying Body. Yi Chen and Murong Qingcheng both thought about the Undying Body. They had come to the underground world because of the Undying Body. It was very unlikely that the Undying Body had nothing to do with the underground world. However, this kind of Undying Body was too creepy, and normal people wouldn't choose it. Of course, it was just their guess. No one knew what the real Undying Body was like. Chapter 437. Demonic Palm Imprint. As more and more statues rushed over, Murong Qingcheng threw out a palm imprint in the direction with the most number. The palm energy contained the annihilation attribute caused all the statues in the area to float in the air. As if they had lost their gravity, they were immediately annihilated. However, in the next moment, the black smoke once again gathered the countless stone powders and reformed the statues. The undying stone statue was unexpectedly difficult to deal with. Seems like I'll have to use the attributed sword intent. Back in the Sun God Palace, Yi Chen had used the slaughter sword intent to shave off a lot of the undying monsters' Yuan Qi, making them unable to recover their peak battle power in a short period of time. The more they fought, the weaker they became. At this moment, the slaughter sword intent naturally couldn't be used, because the opponent was not a living being. It was the same Sky Thunder Cut, but because it contained the destruction sword intent, it was much more powerful than the ordinary Sky Thunder Cut. As the sword slashed out, the destructive aura released by the sword was enough to make people tremble in fear. The weeds in a straight line instantly lost their vitality. Not only did they wither, but they were also incinerated into black powder. The blazing sword light swept out in all directions, causing the dozen statues to pause for a moment. Several large and small sword scars appeared on their bodies. At this moment, the black smoke within the sword scars couldn't come out at all. Every strand that came out would be erased by the remnant destruction sword intent. The destruction sword intent had restrained the undying bodies of the statues. Restrained? Murong Qingqing didn't know much about attributed sword intent. She only knew that once one comprehended an attributed sword intent, one's sword Dao would far surpass others. For example, a life and death king who comprehended an attributed sword intent would be stronger than a life and death king with ordinary sword intent. As for why some life and death kings couldn't comprehend an attributed sword intent, it was not only because of their comprehension ability, but also because of their soul. After all, there was a gap between people. No matter how rich a cripple was, he would still be a cripple. As far as she knew, Yi Chen had more than one attributed sword intent. He should have 3. One person comprehending 3 attributed sword intents was something that had never happened in the history of True Spirit Continent. If he could cultivate 3 attributed sword intents to the life and death realm, his sword Dao would be absolutely terrifying. As for whether he could surpass the ancient Sword King and become the second Sword King or the first Sword Emperor, she couldn't be sure. After all, comprehensive development was much more difficult than a single development. Even if he was 8 in every aspect, he might not even reach 10 in one aspect. Reaching the pinnacle of any aspect would be extremely frightening. However, no matter what, as long as Yi Chen reached life and death realm, his achievements would not be low. Green Lotus Mountain Splitter. Holding the Green Lotus sword, Yi Chen waved it in a circle. Immediately, a huge sword light shrouded in a destructive aura turned into a perfect blue sun, chopping all the statues in its range into 2. Sizzling sounds could be heard as the black smoke gradually thinned out. Let's go. There was no need to clash head-on with these statues. Yi Chen chose a direction and continued forward, with Murong Qingqing following closely behind. After walking for a long time, the two didn't encounter any new statues. Gradually, the two arrived at the side of a huge river. The river was dozens of li wide and immeasurably long. In this dusky environment, the river gave off a cold and emotionless feeling. On the riverside stood a huge stone stele with 6 large black words written on it. Demon Statue Heart, Soul Extinguishing Wave. For a moment, the two couldn't understand the meaning of these words, but they didn't pay any attention to it and continued forward along the river. After traveling for about 10 miles, the river gradually became turbulent, forming whirlpools. It turned out that this place was the intersection of 3 rivers, and on one side of the intersection stood a huge black mountain. The position of the black mountain facing the river was actually a 100 meters tall stone statue built on half of the mountain. The stone statue was built according to the mountain, and it was one with the mountain, completely indistinguishable from each other. The stone statue's color was azure with a hint of black. It was sitting there, and its hands and feet were not those of a human's, but those of a demonic beast. For some unknown reason, the two felt an extremely frightening demonic intent from the stone statue. Under this demonic intent, the entire stone statue seemed to have come to life. It was clearly a demon statue. Demon statue heart, could it be referring to this demon statue? No matter how I look at it, this demon statue is not an ordinary one. Yi Chen was very clear that since the stone statue could come to life and surround them, this demon statue should be even more powerful. He just didn't know what the demon statue's heart was referring to. Sitting near the intersection of three rivers, the demon statue overlooked the common people. The turbulent river did not calm down because of it, but instead became even more violent and soul-stirring. If this was the outside world, it was unknown how many cargo ships would have met with mishaps here. Buzz! The demon statue's eyeballs suddenly turned, and as its eyeballs turned, the wind and clouds in the world changed, and waves rose up from the river, rushing towards the two. In the next moment, the demon statue suddenly stood up. The moment it stood up, the space around it trembled, and a terrifying demonic intent covered the sky and earth, radiating out in all directions. Demonic will. Yi Chen took a deep breath. He wasn't surprised by the demon statue coming to life. What surprised him was that the demon statue contained a completely different martial will. It was clearly the extremely rare demonic will. The demonic will was the same as the sword will, both originated from the martial way, but it had already formed a perfect system. In ancient times, those who possessed the demonic will were the true demons. After splitting apart the waves with a sword, Yi Chen and Murong Qingqing looked straight at the demon statue. Rumble. The demon statue's body was slightly stiff when it stood up, but when it punched out, one could see how fast it was. Before the fist arrived, the fist pressure had already scattered the gray clouds in the sky. Under the enhancement of the demonic will, the majestic fist force seemed to be able to penetrate through the earth. Without any hesitation, Yi Chen met the fist force with his sword. Instant. Thunder rumbled in the sky, and everything within a radius of dozens of miles darkened. Dark clouds gathered from all directions, pouring down thunder and lightning. The river below was directly evaporated into the sky by the explosive power of the sword chi and the fist force, revealing the pitch-black riverbed. Involuntarily, Yi Chen glided hundreds of meters away, his clothes fluttering in the wind like flags. Force field cut. Murong Qingqing's intuition told her that the demon statue would be of great use to her, so she also launched an attack. Two completely opposite force fields clashed together, forming a horrifying cutting power, cutting towards the demon statue's head. At the same time, she pushed the sky demon power field to its limit, just in case. Crack. The demon statue's reaction was very slow, and the cutting force field cut out a huge cut on its neck. Of course, compared to its body size, the cut was still a bit small, so it was not a big deal. Its eyes turned to Murong Qingqing, and it threw out another punch. Puff. The sky demon power field outside Murong Qingqing's body instantly collapsed, and she spurted out a mouthful of blood, flying back several thousand meters. However, in Yi Chen's eyes, it had a different meaning. As far as he was concerned, this was Murong Qingqing's true strength, or close to it. Otherwise, ordinary extreme astral reaching experts would not be able to survive this strike, even if they had condensed a martial soul embryo. Sucking in a deep breath, the sword intent on Yi Chen's body became increasingly dense, piercing through the dark clouds in the sky. His entire body seemed like an unsheathed peerless sword. Swish. Extending his body, Yi Chen shot toward the demonic statue and slashed out in the air. The might of this slash was unfathomable. Half of the demon statue's body was almost cut open. What made Yi Chen a bit surprised was that the demon statue didn't have an undying body, and the cut couldn't be healed. As for what was pushing it, it was probably the remnant demonic will. The demon statue's body swayed, but it still threw out a stiff punch. The range of the fist energy was too large, and Yi Chen couldn't avoid it. Therefore, he could only block with his sword and retreat several hundred meters, his blood and qi boiling. At this moment, Murong Qingqing charged over with blood staining the corner of her mouth. Facing the demon statue, she used the Sky Demon Palm Imprint Sky Rebuke. Originally, this palm couldn't pose any threat to the demon statue. However, Yi Chen's sword strike had cut open half of the demon statue's body, causing its upper body to sway, as if it would collapse at any moment. This caused Murong Qingqing's palm strike to cover its body with cracks. The demon statue, covered in cracks, didn't feel any pain. It punched out, and with a swish, a finger unexpectedly fell off. It turned out that it was already falling off when it clashed with Yi Chen. Now that it punched out, the finger shot out at an unimaginable speed, containing a tyrannical demonic will. Danger! Yi Chen swung out a sword light, cutting off the demon statue's finger. However, the demon statue's finger that had lost half of its finger still hit Murong Qingqing, bringing her body several miles away. In midair, Murong Qingqing's blood stained the finger, and a shocking scene happened. The finger and the demonic will on the demon statue in the distance left the body, pouring into Murong Qingqing's soul's sea between her eyebrows. Without the support of the demonic will, the demon statue suddenly collapsed. Only the right part of its chest remained, flying towards Murong Qingqing. The demon statue's heart, so that's how it is. Yi Chen breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that the entire demon statue was a demonic inheritance. In its chest, there should be the soul destruction wave. Murong Qingqing cultivated the demonic cultivation method, so she naturally accepted this demonic inheritance. As the demonic will poured into her soul sea, a strange look flashed across Murong Qingqing's face. Seeing the piece of the demon statue's chest flying towards her, she reached out and caught it. Pack! The stone shattered, revealing a piece of jade, a black jade. Are you okay? Yi Chen flew over and asked. Murong Qingqing shook her head, I'm fine, but my martial will has directly transformed into the demonic will, and the embryonic form of my martial soul has also become the embryonic form of the demonic soul. Furthermore, it has advanced one step, approaching the true demonic soul. The soul has its own characteristics. Since the demonic will has accepted you, it means that you are suitable for the demonic Tao. With the Battle King's vast knowledge, how could Yi Chen not know about this? Some people couldn't comprehend the sword soul. Apart from the comprehension ability, it was also related to the soul. The soul could only accept ordinary sword wills, so it would be hard for one to have an elemental sword will. Murong Qingqing's martial will had smoothly transformed into the demonic will, which meant that she was naturally suitable for the demonic Tao. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.